All right, today we're going to tie together our factoring by doing a little bit of a factoring review. So kind of going over the ones we've been working on for quite a while now, actually. Okay, so what I have over here, first of all, this is kind of your factoring checklist. That's kind of what we'll use to determine what type of factoring we're going to be doing. So like I've talked about, the very first thing you have to look for is a GCF whenever you're factoring. Okay, you want to factor out that GCF for a couple reasons. Number one, sometimes it's the only way you're going to be able to factor it further. And number two, sometimes it just makes it easier because it gives you smaller numbers. Okay, and typically once you get smaller numbers, then you're going to end up having less factors, which can speed up the process for you a little bit. After you check for GCF, the next thing you have to check is, do I have 2 terms, 3 terms, or 4 terms? Okay, if you have 2 terms after GCF, you are always going to look for difference of squares. Okay, remember both terms have to be perfect squares and you have to have a subtraction sign. If you don't have that, then you cannot do difference of squares. Okay, then if you have 3 terms, you're going to look to do the factors. Okay, where we list out the factors and try and find the right combination to get that middle term. Okay, and if you have 4 terms, then you're going to be grouping. And remember, the only grouping we have is grouping first 2 and last 2. And then from there, we can factor. Okay, so I've got 5 different ones. We're just going to go through kind of one of each type here to make sure we're good to go with these. Okay, so for number 1 here, I've got 27x squared minus 48. Again, first thing I have to look for is I have to look for GCF. Okay, which you do have here. Okay, 3 can go into both of those, so I do need to pull out a GCF of 3. Okay, when I divide each by 3, I'll be left with 9x squared minus 16. Now, 9x squared minus 16 is 2 terms. Okay, if it's 2 terms, that means I'm looking difference of squares. Okay, sure enough, both of these are perfect squares, and I have subtraction sign, so I will go ahead and do this one as difference of squares. Okay, difference of squares, remember you're taking the square root of each term and kind of running out of room there and stick that one up there. Okay, and then you have to have opposite signs because we want the middle terms to cancel out. That's why we're just having 2 terms left. Okay, so for number 1, this would be your correct answer. For number 2, again, look GCF first. As I look at each of these, I do not have a GCF with all of them. Okay, so then I look at the number of terms. I have 4 terms. If I have 4 terms, I'm looking to do my grouping. Okay, so I'm going to group the first 2 together and the second 2 together. Okay, if I look at the first grouping, I have a GCF of x squared that I'm going to take out. If I look at the second grouping, I can pull a 2 out. And remember, if this is a negative, I have to actually pull out a negative 2. Remember, with grouping, you should always get the same thing in parentheses, which we do here. So that becomes one of my last factors. And then I combine the leftovers. I have an x squared minus 2. Now, the other thing you can look for, and you do have this on a couple of your problems when you get to your review sheet tomorrow, is you need to make sure, can this be factored as difference of squares? Okay, you'll notice this is a square, perfect square, but this is not. So that tells me I would be done with the problem. Okay, if for some reason that had been a 4 or a 9, then I could have also factored that difference of squares like I did on the previous problem. Okay, so again, GCF, difference of squares. Here we just had to do grouping because of the 4 terms. Okay, for the next one we're going to do, we have x squared minus 4x minus 21 and 12x squared minus 26x minus 56. Okay, so if you look at the top one again, look GCF. We do not have a GCF on this one. It has 3 terms though. If it has 3 terms, I'm going to be looking at the factors. Okay, so I'd go 2 sets of parentheses. This is just an x squared, so we just have an x and x. Remember, opposite signs because that's a negative 21. So I'm looking for factors of negative 21 that give me a negative 4. The ones you're going to want to use is -7 and +3. Okay, because if I add -7 plus 3, I get -4. If I multiply -7 and 3, I get -21. Okay, so that would be factored for 3 terms. Okay, if we look at 4, we do have a GCF. We want to make sure we take the 2 out. So if I take a 2 out, okay, we are then left with 6x squared minus 13x minus 28. Okay, what's in parentheses has 3 terms. 3 terms means we want to deal with the factors. Okay, so I would go ahead and do 2 sets of parentheses. I do know I'm going to have opposite signs because of the -28. Now this one might take a little work because I have some options. I can pick 1 and 6 or 2 and 3 here. Okay, I've got 1 and 28, I got 2 and 14, and you got 4 and 7 as your options. Again, try to pick the ones that are closer together if you can. So I'm going to try a 2x and a 3x first. And then, let's see, could go 7 and 4. Okay, and again, it just takes a little thought. You kind of have to think through them in your head. You probably won't get it really quickly at first. Okay, some of you might be starting to get there now that we've done a few days of review, but you can't get impatient with them. Okay, you just need to have some perseverance, and again, the more you do, the better you will get with them. Okay, so if I check here, I get -21x, I get 8x, that does give me -13, so that would be the correct combination. Okay, so again, for 3 terms, look GCF, and then you have to go with the factors of those. All right, so one more I want to do here with you guys. So for 5, this one's a little unique, and we haven't done ones like this in a while, so I just want to make sure we talk about it. Okay, so again, look GCF first here. I do have a GCF. Okay, I can take a 2 out, and I can take an x squared out. Okay, so if I take a 2x squared out, I'm left with 2x minus 5. Now I have 2 terms left. 2 terms left means I'm looking difference of squares. I do have a difference, but neither of these are perfect squares. Okay, if they're not perfect squares, then I'm just done with the problem. That one only had a GCF, which will again happen sometimes when you're working with them. All right, so that's kind of a review. Again, GCF first. If it's 2 terms, looks difference of squares. 3 terms, lists the factors. 4 terms, we're going to group 2 and 2. Okay, so you guys have a worksheet today. All these are just kind of thrown on the worksheet. Okay, so first, again, look GCF, then identify the terms, and then factor from there. I did attach the answers as well. Please do not go directly to the answers, though. Okay, try and do the regular worksheet first, and then go check your answers. Okay, that's the only way you're going to learn. If you have the answers right next to you, you give yourself a false sense of knowing it when you probably don't. Okay, so again, don't look at those answers until you have gone through the problems. Okay, there are 5 of them I don't give you the answers to. That's because those are the ones that I'm going to grade. Okay, so those 5 will be the ones that are on your Google assignment. All right, but otherwise tomorrow we'll review, and then we'll also review next week on Tuesday as well, and your quiz will be the following Wednesday. Okay, so hopefully by then you'll have had enough practice with factoring that you'll feel very comfortable with it. All right, have a good rest of your day.